Shalom Havrim and hello friends. Good to be with you the first Sunday of the Christmas season. Of course, there are 12 days in the Christmas season. That's why they have the song, The 12 Days of Christmas. And I'm going to go into more detail with that next week. But this year I realized I've never really given thought to what the elves do immediately after Christmas. Like, what do they do? How do they spend their time? So I asked a friend, and I learned that the elves spend the day after Christmas working on Santa's sleigh. Think about it like this. The sleigh has been around the world and back in 24 hours. It has a lot of wear and tear. And there's more work to be done this year to the sleigh because, it's a pandemic year. So do you know what the elves do to the sleigh the day after Christmas in a pandemic year? They sanitize it. They sanitize the sleigh. Come on now. That was absolutely wonderful. All right, best joke of the year. Something like that. Oh, my friends, I hope that you had a good Christmas, at least the best Christmas possible in the situation that we are in a pandemic year. Now, I've told some of you, probably all of you know by now if you know me, that I like old country music. The new stuff, you can keep that. I'm not that interested in the newer stuff, but the old stuff, I like the old stuff. And recently I've had an old song by Merle Haggard in my mind. And I can't get it out. And I think the reason that's sticking there in my mind is because it fits the experience that I'm in right now. Of course, the song that I'm thinking of, it's called If We Make It Through December. And actually, if you Google that or look it up on YouTube, you'll get a cover of that song by a person named Phoebe Bridgers. And it's a beautiful rendition. It has all the feels and all the stuff that Merle Haggard's song includes as well, but it's a little more modern, and I loved it. I really appreciated that. But the song is about getting through December. It's about a guy who gets laid off down at the factory. It's a difficult time because he can't buy presents for his children. And there's so many things that just compound it and make it more difficult. And you start thinking about all the things that happen in December. First of all, December is the shortest days and the longest months. The 21st of December is the winter solstice, and that's the longest darkness that we will experience all year long, and the shortest amount of daytime. It's one of the coldest months of the year. So I start thinking about how that affects me and all the things that are going on in my life. And I'm thinking about how this has been an extremely difficult semester for me with my schooling. I think about the pandemic. like I could forget that. There's a pandemic going on. I think about the struggles of all the kids and the students and the teachers that are doing online learning right now. And it's just not going well. So this song has been in my mind. If we make it through December, everything's going to be all right, I know. If we make it through December, we'll be fine. So that song has been in my mind, and now you're welcome because it's going to be in your mind too. But it's been on my mind, especially here lately. If we make it through December, if we just make it through December, we'll be fine. Keep that in mind here as we work through this text this morning. I'm going to come back to that song here shortly. Today's text comes to us from Luke's Gospel, chapter 2. And it's the story of Jesus and his family going to the temple. Now, Jesus is an itty-bitty baby at this point. He doesn't know what's going on. He's 7 days old. And the reason that they're taking him to the temple is twofold. They have to take him to the temple so that he can be dedicated. And really, it's an event called the Pidyon Haben. Everybody say that one. That's fun. The Pidyon Haben. I'm listening. Perfect. The Pidyon Haben is the redemption of the firstborn. There's several times in the Old Testament where it talks about how God saved the Israelite children. He saved the firstborn passing over their homes. And because of that event, the people had to redeem their firstborn child. The first one out of the womb of the woman had to be essentially purchased back from God. There was a giving of, I think, like 5 shekels. It's not very much. It's more of an act of remembrance. God, you saved our firstborn, and we're going to remember that through this offering that we make. The other reason that they went to the temple that day was for Mary. If you recall, a woman who gives birth is considered ceremonially unclean. It's hard to say, ceremonially unclean, until they make the offerings. They have to wait a period of time, and then they make an offering and go through the ritual of cleansing themselves. And the period of waiting after a child was born, it differed for a boy than it does for a girl. If a boy was born, the woman was considered unclean for 7 days. If a girl was born, that period was doubled. And I have no idea why. I've given it some thought, and I can't figure out why is it 7 days for a boy and 2 weeks for a girl. Not sure. But here they are. What did they have? They had a baby boy. So Joseph and Mary, they come and bring their baby Jesus to the temple for this Pidyan Haben, the redemption of the firstborn, and to perform the offering to God for the cleansing of Mary, to make her ceremonially clean again. And the text is specific of what they offered to God that day. It says that they offered 2 pigeons. And the reason it's significant that they gave 2 pigeons is because that means that they weren't rich. They had very little money. A pigeon is something you can just catch on your own, and then make your offering. So Jesus is born into this very humble family. Now, those are all really interesting things, but I think what's most interesting about this story isn't the things that are taking place in the temple that day. It's the people who are there. It's like going to any church today. There are some interesting people in churches. Just start talking to people and listening to their stories. There's interesting people there. And there's 2 interesting people in this story for today, and I'm going to work backwards. We're going to look at the second one first and the first one second. The first person that they meet is a woman named Anna. And Anna is a widow, and she is a young woman of all of 84 years old. So still a lot of life ahead of her. 84 years old. It says that she spends all of her free time every day praying, fasting, and worshiping God. She has been in this temple for years, only to go home to sleep, I think, and come back to the temple again. Then the other interesting person there that day is Simeon. And Simeon is interesting for a number of reasons. And I kind of try to make this a little more contemporary. Imagine you're Joseph and Mary, and you have this 7-day-old baby. And you walk into the temple for the first time. It's just like a family might come into the church for the first time with their newborn baby. And what is the first thing that happens? This stranger comes up to you and says, "What a beautiful child, may I hold them?" and snatches them out of your hand. And this is what I imagine happening with Simeon. Simeon grabs the baby Jesus from Mary and Joseph. Hopefully he asked first. And the reason that he grabs this baby is because he has this promise that he's received from God, that he will not die until he sees the Messiah. And Simeon, for some reason, recognizes that that's who Jesus is. He knows this is the Messiah. And he says this in Luke chapter 2, verses 29 through 32. He says in this prayer, it's actually a song. He sings out, "Master, now you are dismissing your servant in peace according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and glory for your people, Israel." I mean, what a powerful moment. Can you imagine that? He has received this promise from God. He's not going to die until he meets the Messiah. He sees this baby Jesus. He knows this is the one. And he says, "God, now you can take me. You have kept your promise. It has been fulfilled. And now I can die in peace." But what had changed? I mean, think about it. Jesus is a baby, 7 days old. What difference does that make? I mean, Simeon, if he didn't die, he's going to wake up the next day, and you know what? They're still under Roman oppression, under Roman rule. They still don't have the freedoms that they would like to have. The next day after that, probably the same thing. In fact, we know that Jesus, he doesn't start his ministry until he's about 30, so it's going to be 30 more years till this guy even starts preaching and teaching and healing people. It's going to be 33 years till he dies on the cross and rises again from the dead. So what is Simeon so excited about? Like nothing has changed. Why are you so excited, Simeon? Well, the reason he's excited is because he knows this is a tipping point. This is when things start to turn. This is when things start to change. And yes, this infant is only an itty-bitty baby. But he knows that itty-bitty baby is going to grow to be the Messiah, the chosen one. So I sum this up by saying the reason that Simeon was so excited, the reason that he sang that day is because he had hope. And not just like there's some random hope. No, he had reason to hope. God had promised he would see the Messiah, and he did. So let's bring it back to the 21st century in that song that I keep singing or playing on my smart speaker. If we make it through December, we'll be fine. We all know that this has been a difficult year. 2020 has been a real dumpster fire. But I believe that things are starting to change. Things are starting to turn. And a friend of mine recently said something like, every year we come to New Year's Eve and everybody gets excited. They're like, this is going to be the year. Things are going to change and this is going to be so much better. And then it turns out to be just another year the same as the year before. But I have reason to believe that this year will be better than the last. You see, we have now a vaccine, and people are starting to receive this vaccine. And I think that while the numbers of COVID patients continues to go up, as the number of people that get the vaccine go up, the numbers will shift. And I praise God that is occurring, that we were able to get something to address this pandemic as quickly as we did. So I see this receiving of this vaccine and God working through this medical field. I see this a lot like what Simeon saw in Jesus. When Simeon first met baby Jesus, nothing changed. It wasn't an immediate change, but he saw a pivot. He saw this tipping point, this turning, that things were going to start going the other way. He had hope in that child, that one day things would be made right through him. And likewise, I think that we have reason, even though things haven't changed around us, even though this is going to be the first Christmas in 40 years when I don't see my family for Christmas, I still have reason to hope that things are about to get better. I put my hope not just in a vaccine. I put my hope in a God who is the great healer, a God who is working through people, working through medicine, working through science to put an end to our current state, an end to this pandemic. So 2020 years ago, Simeon met a baby boy and it brought him hope. And I'm reminded of that song that begins by saying, "To us a child of hope is born. To us a son is given." No, in the midst of it, as things are just starting to change, we maybe don't see signs of that change. But we know that we have hope that God will never leave us nor abandon us. We have hope that God is active and God is working through our situation. And I have hope that if we make it through December, everything's going to be all right. I know, because I know who's in charge. All right, my friends, go out and listen to some Merle Haggard and celebrate, because our God is a loving God. Our God is active, and our God will make things right.